And welcome, everybody, to Rock M Radio. This is the beginning of a brand new episode of Dive Cuts, and we are live on YouTube for Rock M Plus subscribers. Still trolling along here in Season 8. Ready to talk all about your Missouri basketball Tigers as the only podcast strictly talking about the Mizzou basketball Tigers. I am your host, Tim Snelling, back after like a month off. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see me on your left. Take a moment to hit the like button. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, and we can help this channel grow a bit. With me, together again, it's been a while, Mr. Harris, Mr. Matt Harris from the weedy plains of Indiana. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Like I said before we got on, we'll see if the power holds. We had some storms here. We had some little patchy blackouts, but hopefully those are done. Otherwise, I'm fine, and I'm ready to talk about everyone's favorite topic in June. SOS and non-con schedule quality. Just the kind of thing to get people through the doldrums of June.
Which is interesting because we usually don't get a full schedule drop. I mean, there's always kind of been like leaks here and there, and you're able to kind of parse together. I don't think we've had the full schedule like this early in the off season. So credit to who's the new Dobo over there?
I don't know. I think they just kind of gave up. They were like, well, we're getting all these FOIA requests and all the contracts are coming out. So screw it. Let's just drop it. Let's just get it over with. You know, I think the always diligent and persistent Missouri Beat Corps getting game contracts as they came in just kind of henpecked them to death. Normally it comes out in late August is when they do the big release. This is about the time we normally get the conference matchups, which is what I was expecting today, was like the conference pairings. Like we already kind of knew what they were aside from like the third home and home, but hey, credit to the basketball office today for just dropping the whole thing and just cutting the charade and just giving it to us. Thank you, Griffin. Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to tip our caps to the new director of basketball operations, Griffin McCone. I'm assuming that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Griffin's new to the program. He was under Abdur-Rahim there in USF. So there's the connection. Gates was friends there, and so McCone makes the move after some turnover there in South Florida. Tragically, don't know if anybody remember, but their head coach there passed away unexpectedly, like right before the season. If I have that right, it was like right before like an exhibition game, I think.
Yeah.
So they hired a new coach. I don't even know who they hired.
Brian Hodgson
Griffin was
from
there.
Arkansas State.
Griffin was there, and now that's right. Yeah, the former Nate Oates assistant. So that's the guy that gave us what we wanted, an early release of the schedule. So let's talk about it. In fact, I will pull this up and get it up on the screen since we have it on Rock M Plus. If I can get this to load. Well, actually, I think maybe it's just easier just to pull it up because it is on MUTigers.com. Yeah, so we're just going to go right back to MUTigers.com. Boop, boop, and we're sharing. Okay. So first game we already knew about. They're traveling to Washington, D.C. to take on Howard. Like that game? Don't like that game?
I like it. Look, it's a sub 300 game. It's a low major. It's probably going to be quad 4. But this is my thing. Like, go play interesting games. Like, I'm all for this, and I'm just going to say this at the outset. A lot of people today were like, man, the schedule sucks. They say that every year. Why isn't Mizzou playing like in a bunch of MTEs? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? And here's my thing. We are as nerdy and as wonky as anybody. Like, I understand the argument for why you would want to go play an MTE rather than the MTE setup Missouri does during Thanksgiving week, where they play a bunch of MEAC or SWAC schools. And I get when people say go play in like a Feast Week tournament because you're going to get better games. That's objectively probably true, but this is my thing. One, the quality of the MTEs that you're going to get into now, the really, really good ones, those are decided multiple years in advance. So you can't just like in June say, hey, let's go to Maui or Baja Mar. Those are decided 1, 2, 3 years out. Second of all,
Yeah, so you need to be consistently good there for a while.
like really, really good for 4 or 5 years to even get in the mix for the ones that are really going to have the high profile matchups. You don't just be like, oh, let's call up Maui and see if they'll take us. I mean, I would take one like in Charleston, which Vanderbilt played in last year, where you might get 1 or 2 quad 2 games. So I think people overstate the quality of the MTE fields you're going to get into if you're in Missouri's position as like a average mid-major. Second of all, sports fans are squeezed routinely for dollars. You pay, no matter if you have YouTube TV and you've done like the sports package add-on, if you're still paying for cable, if you're doing like just separate standalone apps, whatever, you're getting squeezed there. You're getting nickel and dimed on season ticket costs with, ticket fees added on. You're getting squeezed everywhere. And look, we can debate the quality of the home games, but the fact that Missouri plays 9, 10, 11 home games every year under Dennis Gates is, in broad terms, very good. I like the fact that they're saying, we're going to give you 9 or 10 home games every year. If you're going to pay for season tickets, we're not going to go play, if you were to do the MTE plus bragging rights, and if you're in Kansas City plus a road game, you're not going to pay season ticket prices to see 7 home games. And of those 7 home games, guess what? They're probably all still going to be quad 4s anyway. So the difference to me here realistically is, unless it is a legit home and home with a really quality opponent or a really quality mid-major, I'm fine with Missouri playing as many home games as possible because, as we'll talk about later, the margins for some of the qualities of these teams that you could swap out, the casual fan isn't going to know. And if you do MTEs routinely and you're playing neutral site games against rivals, you're going to get 6 to 7 home games a year. And there are people that are going to pay, and Mizzou's not going to drop the ticket price for that. You're still going to probably pay the same cost you paid the year prior. So my big spiel is, we'll talk about the mechanics of how the schedule could improve. But broadly speaking, this staff gives you 10 home games a year. A lot of schools don't give you that many as much. And if you're Missouri and you're an athletic department that is not awash in cash compared to your peers in the SEC, that as many home gates as you can get matters. So that's my spiel off the top, which comes back to Howard. I think it's cool. If you're going to go play a game, make it interesting. Going to Howard, which has been a really, really good program in the MEAC. It's won a couple AQ bids. Kenny Blankney does a great job there. That's a fun game to me. That's an interesting game to me. So I'm fine with that. Like, hey, let's go play an HBCU on its home floor. That's different. I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely cool with that. And if your team is good enough, guess what? You should probably win that game anyway. So just doing something interesting is fine with me for the opener.
So their home opener is SEMO. We play SEMO a lot. Our man, Coach Korn is still down there doing his thing.
Someone get Brad Korn out of Cape Girardeau. Somebody.
That's a tough job. He's done a really nice job there. So SEMO is going to be like as tough as they kind of come out of the OVC, and then VMI. So you and I know that there's a connection there. Missouri has some former staffers on staff at VMI. As things kind of happen, lower level guys in the staff move up to take assistant jobs at lower and mid majors. That's what happened here. So that's kind of the connection. I do kind of like, and Dennis has done this multiple times. of making a connection with former staff members and scheduling them for a game. So, and the former, believe, if I'm not mistaken, going off memory here, the former home of former Tiger Jason Conley. Wasn't he a VMI?
He was a key det. He was a key det.
Are they key dets or they're just cadets?
Key dets, Keydets, key dets.
Okay, good to know. He was the leading scorer in the country as a freshman, and then he transferred after his sophomore year. Anyway, that's like weird memory stuff. So they get the return game finally of Minnesota, but albeit with a different coach. Niko Medved has taken over for the Gophers. He's a guy that the quote unquote brain trust at Rock and Plus is always kind of a big fan of, and the work that he did at Colorado State. Thought he had a bright future. I realize I understand why he's taking the Minnesota job. I don't love him taking the Minnesota job. That's a really difficult job and a tough league. To me, it's akin of, taking like the worst job in the SEC. Like somebody's going to take it. But it's like Lamont Paris, good luck. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I think the hope for him there is that, he wouldn't have gone back there unless there was probably some assurances of resources that his predecessor did not get, that Ben Johnson did not have. So I think that's, but that's going to be an interesting game. I think they do a great job in terms of, at Colorado State, he was really good about kind of getting weird and finding some NAIA guys, Division II guys. I think that roster is going to take a little bit there, but he builds really competent, skilled rosters. Right now, they're projected at 79th in Torvik, which is not a bad start there. And if you think he's a good coach, that could round into a quad 2 win if you get it at home. Right now, it sits as quad 3. But I like that. I like that, we're going to honor the agreement. We're going to get it done. And, that's going to probably be a better game with Niko Medved coaching it than with Ben Johnson coaching it. No offense to Ben Johnson. Just, I think what Nico's shown he can do and what he's probably got in terms of early resources there will make that into a quality game early on there. So I think there's some people that are like, oh, it's just Minnesota. I'm like, I think you really got to look at kind of the change that happened there, maybe some of the early investment that was made to get Niko on board there. So I think that's going to wind up being a pretty quality game, all things considered. I'm glad it's unlike the Utah game, which what did the Utah game last 3 years before that thing got played? So get this one done and then see what, regional high major you can schedule for the next year. So glad it's getting done early. I like that that's coming in early November. There's a little bit of a mix. Howard's 328 in Torvik right now. SEMO's 160. SEMO may wind up being if SEMO's any good, may sneak into quad 3 territory. VMI, is going to be quad 4, but a nice mix of teams between 150 and 320. And then you get Minnesota, which is retooling a little bit. That's not a bad start to the year, all things considered, for the first couple of weeks. And it comes fast. It's November 3 all the way to November 12. They are stacking them early. So that's the other thing I like about this is that it's mix of teams, but it's really coming quick. Your guys are going to have to get things over. You're going to have to kind of get guys back in the groove of preparing on short timelines, which is what people always say MTEs are good for. I think this is as close of an approximation to. So I think the first 4 games aren't that bad to me. I'm actually pretty good with them.
So Prairie View A&M, not a super exciting game. South Dakota, Horizon
down a little bit relative to where South Dakota usually is.
And South Carolina State is another kind of game. So we kind of get into like, this is where I think a lot of fans are probably wanting like an MTE and this, sort of like late November. And instead they're going South Carolina State and Cleveland State. So again, kind of talking about going back to the well with your former staffers. Rob Summers just got the head coaching job at Cleveland State, taking over Danielle Robinson, who went to North Texas.
Danielle did a good job there.
Yeah.
Danielle did Iowa State. He was a really good recruiter at Iowa State, did a great job there. North Texas makes smart hires. So he did a really nice job. And again, like you're right. Bring Rob back. There's some guys that are going to be on that staff. Dallin King's going to be on that staff. He was the former Dobo there, so that makes sense. That I'm fine with that one. I think the one thing that people are going to look at is that run of Prairie View, South Dakota, and South Carolina State is probably what's going to, I think, get some hackles up. But South Dakota, I'll be interested in what South Dakota is. They're normally stronger than right now. They're 273 in Torvik's preseason ranking, like early projections. They're usually better than that. They're usually pretty good in the Summit. So I'm curious if they really are that low. Prairie View, I don't think there's much I can do there to couch that one. South Carolina State, not either way there. So yeah, I think that's the 3 to 4 game stretch where I think we can talk about this we can circle back to that. Let's get through the rest of the schedule because I think
I don't really think we need to circle back to it. I mean, it is what it is. There'll be plenty of time to talk about those kinds of teams. I don't really see a point in spending June talking about it. But Notre Dame, hello, Jalen Harrelson and Mike Shrewsbury. So Harrelson was one of Missouri's top recruits in last year's recruiting class. They obviously did not sign him. Notre Dame did. He is an Indiana kid, and a lot of signs were kind of pointing to him kind of staying close to home, and Shrewsbury was able to kind of close that out, so good for them. But still, Notre Dame has not really been able to break through under Shrewsbury. Mike Bray, very notably, kind of struggled in his last few seasons despite having a long, kind of really successful career there. Notre Dame has struggled to kind of get things going. So theoretically, this should be a game that you should be able to go on the road and win, but I don't know that it's one that necessarily will hurt you a whole lot if you lose it.
Yeah, they're 66th in Torvik right now, which that's a sneaky quad one game right now. And just as a note, we're using Torvik's early projections as a proxy for the net rankings. Ultimately, they all kind of wind up in the same ballpark. But this is the loose guide we've got right now. And plus, Torvik's using rosters as they are right now. So let's say 66 is the early benchmark. That's a winnable game for you that can backdoor you a quad one win. Like, to me, that's one of those things where it doesn't hurt you if you lose it, but why would you want to leave a gettable quad one win on the table?
Yeah. Well, it's akin to beating South Carolina on the road last year.
Yeah. Yeah. They may not be as strong as the predictive metrics indicate there, but that's still a win that you want to get. Right now, I'm pulling up Notre Dame right now just because they'll have their current roster here. They did lose a big guy. They lost their second leading scorer in Tay Davis, who we're going to see at Oklahoma this year. Really, really skilled stretch 4. That was a big hit for them in the portal. Yeah, they're not bringing back a ton right now. I mean, Marcus Burton right now is looking at a projected 31% usage rate. The next guy behind him is Sir Muhammad, who is a freshman or a sophomore, and that's at 20%. So it's going to be a roster that is, going to be probably relying heavily on Burton, probably heavily on Harrelson early. They've got a really nice freshman class. I mean, they have a top 10 freshman class, but Harrelson's probably the only guy that I would say can make a dent early. So this should be a game where if you are an experienced team in your Missouri, you should feel confident winning this game on the road. Losing, like I said, won't hurt you, but veteran teams that have aspirations to contend in the SEC get this road win, and they get it. Maybe it's a little bit uncomfortable at points, but they ultimately close it out. So that should be one you want to see them get with some comfort probably down the stretch.
Well, then you get 5 days off, and you get Kansas in Kansas City. So
we got to stop giving Bill Self 5+ days to plan. That's entirely too much time. You got to stop scheduling this thing before finals. It's just too much time.
It did okay last year, and we've talked about KU's roster. I think it's deeper than they were last year.
But where's the top end?
I don't really know what the top end is. I don't really see them as like a top 15 team. I think they're probably more like a top 30 team. So like I look at that game as definitely like a game that they can win. It's a neutral site court, so it's probably going to end up being a quad one.
Yeah, it was gonna be a quad one no matter where you played it, no matter the venue. So
Yeah.
um,
I mean, we can
this
always
is
hope for KU's downfall, but as I always like to say, and I said last year, like once you beat them, like you still like, and I realize goes counterintuitive to a lot of Missouri fans. Like you
you want them
still
to keep
want them
winning.
to, yeah, you want them to like prove that was a good quality win, and that goes like for everybody on your schedule. Like you want to beat them, but you also want them to perform well, so it reflects well in your win. I know it's like I'm not outright rooting for Kansas. Uh, that's a step too far. However, you want them to be good because it's going to make any win you get against them like carry some weight.
Yeah.
And Missouri's win against them at home like lost quite a bit of luster as the season wore on because KU kind of proved to be just kind of okay.
Yeah. I mean, Darren Peterson, I've watched him live, watched him in camp setting. Like Darren Peterson's really, really good. He's going to be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. He's fantastic. But then these are the guys behind them, behind Mr. Peterson. Melvin Council Jr., pretty good wing out of St. Bonaventure, up transfer. Trey White, we saw at Illinois, he is a good cutter and rim finisher and defender. Jaden Dawson, athletic kind of wing from up transfer from Loyola Chicago. Marco Jackson is back. He's healthy this year. I think he was injured and missed last season. The big thing for them is getting Flory Badunga to make a big jump this year. Now that there is no more Hunter Dickinson blocking his way. Samus Calderon's kind of an athletic stretch four, played at OTE, so I'm sure that Mizzou's new GM will know him pretty well. Jamari McDowell, spot freshman duty. He's a sophomore now. Bryson Tiller enrolled at semester early, but it's okay. Like if you're rolling with your core of Melvin Council, Trey White, and Flory Badunga beside Darren Peterson, are you intimidated? We'll talk about this more when the game comes around. I am thrilled that Bill Self has decided to go shopping in the portal instead of signing high school kids and then turning them into an absolute death machine and occasionally throwing like a Darren Peterson in the mix. Very, very pleased that Bill Self has decided to stop doing what he does really, really well. And that's developing high school kids between number 30 and 75 in the composite. I appreciate you doing that, Bill, and giving us a fighting chance. Thank you for that. Please leave Ethan Taylor alone, though. Please leave him alone. Let Missouri have him. You don't need him. You don't need him. But we'll talk about that more when the game gets around here. We can delve into that roster construction on Kansas' side.
So then they come back with a little bit of a break. Alabama State in Columbia on the 11th, December 14th, Bethune-Cookman before bragging rights, December 22nd, a Monday night. I'm assuming it'll be a night.
Yeah, it'll probably be a Monday night. Different, though. Different to have. Normally we get it on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So a little different to have it on a Monday. But we get to see the Eastern European crew.
Brad's changed the image of the university, and it looks a little different. It's not quite the flying Illini anymore. It's Eastern Bloc.
Yeah. All Adidas tracksuits.
Yeah, so for anybody who's like unaware, Bill Self has gone all in on international players. So Zvonimir Ivisic, who we all remember from Arkansas via Kentucky, transferred to play with his brother. His brother's name is Tomas.
Yeah.
Okay. A little easier to say than Zvonimir. But they are twin brothers. They're going to play together. And then he's got like
we got Tomislav Ivicic, Andrei Stojakovic, Sonomir Visic. So, yeah, if all the syllables now reside in Champaign, all
And
of them.
that's after.
And I'm ignoring Benham Rickhouse. I'm ignoring that one.
Well, yeah, Hummerkaus is sort of like an honorary member of that crew.
Of the Polysyllabic Club is what he's a. And then Kylan Boswell's back.
Hey, they got yeah. So they got. I mean, Illinois is going to be good again. It's going to be interesting to see how this all puts together for Brad, but we'll have plenty of time to break down Illinois. Overall thoughts on the non-conference schedule. I do like that he's bringing back former staffers. I like that. I think it's cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what Rob does at Cleveland State. Looking forward to seeing a few familiar faces on the the VMI sidelines. It's good that you're doing that. Missouri, and we've talked about this in previous years, having a built-in bragging rights game, and now hopefully for the foreseeable future, a built-in game against KU does limit some of your scheduling. There aren't many teams out there that have basically 2 rivalry games every year in the preseason, no matter what.
Right.
So Missouri's fortunate in that standpoint that we know we're going to have 2 high-level, exciting matchups, in December. The one thing that, and we've talked about this, we would like to, I would like to see them turn that Thanksgiving week into a destination MTE. I think that it's already tough enough to sort of fill Mizzou Arena that week anyway. We saw it this past year. Doesn't really matter if you're good. It's going to be tough to really fill the building. So why not give your players a break? Take them to Missouri's gone to Orlando in the past. They've gone to I don't know. I remember Konzo one year.
The Virgin Islands. They went to the Virgin Islands.
Yeah,
for one.
That was K-State and was it Oklahoma State?
No, they played Kennesaw State.
Kennesaw State barely won that game.
Yeah. Oregon State. They played Oregon State.
Oregon State. Yeah, I felt like there was an orange
and
black
orange team in there
with OSU. So it would be nice to I do like those MTEs. We talked about this a little bit online today, you, me, and Matt Watkins. I'm a fan of Feast Week. I think that we should have more good tournaments on Feast Week. I would like to see way fewer games in random locations in empty buildings. I want to see fewer games of marquee matchup, but it's in Vegas and there's 2,300 people in the building.
And I think that's the slippery slope for me on this.
Or South Dakota, they play games in Sioux Falls or something like that. And it's just why are we in this location? I would rather see more home and homes. I do like the MTs as far as the tournament action around Thanksgiving. I think that's fun. But yeah, I think the neutral site stuff is overdone to the point where it does feel a little bit like there are certain schools that have learned to kind of game the system a little bit. So I don't know, I would rather Missouri play a home game against Cleveland State than I would a neutral site game in Reno, Nevada against
I mean, a prime example last year is TCU or Mississippi State going to play Dickies Arena in Fort Worth against a mid-tier Big 12 team. That to me is not enjoyable. Or last year we had Baylor Auburn in Fargo, North Dakota. I mean,
Baylor Auburn, great matchup in Fargo, North Dakota. Why? What are we doing?
I mean, the people of Fargo deserve good basketball. I'm not saying the people there don't deserve a good game, but if you're having to fly to Fargo or you're having to fly to Vegas and people say, oh, well, it's a trip to Vegas, and it's okay, fine, but it's a slippery slope to me between you decide that, okay, we're going to play these marquee games, but then we're not going to play them in our building. and you're not solving the problem of you're not giving your fan base good home games. Because if you're going to fly at a neutral site game, you're still gonna not want to take the risk of losing a home game. So you're gonna schedule a quad 3 or 4 game. So would I like to see them improve the schedule in that November 20, like on this year, November 20 to 28 window? Sure. Would I like them to maybe play teams between like 150 and 225 in the net? Yeah. And that's usually teams that are in solid low major or mid major leagues that have a chance at an AQ. Like, I will know who those teams are. I will like have an appreciation for them, like doing the marginal step up in quality. But I think today there are people like when I posted like kind of the breakdown on Twitter and Blue Sky, they're like, "Oh, what are we doing?" And I'm like, fans aren't going to come. They're like seeing these quality games. I'm like, a casual fan is not going to care about the difference between like a contender in the Summit versus a MEAC team. They're not going to. Yeah, I just don't think you're gonna know the marginal difference there.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm letting Tyler's words speak for itself. A comment on the screen.
Yeah.
For audio listeners, he said, "I'm a season ticket holder. I've skipped the Thanksgiving Day week home games almost every year. I don't blame you. Like you're going to a lot of basketball games every year, and
I guess what I'm saying is the alternatives here.
Long Island University, right? So
yeah, I guess what I'm saying is there's no like silver bullet alternative here. Either you're going to go play in an MTE away, and you're going to take 2 or 3 home games off the schedule. But if you keep those home games there, the opponent quality that you're going to get in that window is going to be not a dramatic jump to what I think people think you will get in that slot. So there's no perfect solution here. You're either taking away 3 home games to go play an MTE, and you're still going to pay the same ticket price, or you're going to do what we want to do, which is modestly improve quality. But is that enough to put 11,000 people in the building? Probably not. So for me, I would rather keep home games. And, if people are going to get charged the same price to see 7 or 8 home games versus 10 or 11 home games, I would rather people's dollars go farther. Everyone's preferences are different on this. I think you look at what Missouri's done. This year they did ease up on the sub 300 games. I will give them credit on that. They cut 2 or 3 of those out. They didn't schedule as many top 150 games, but ultimately that November week is going to be an imperfect solution. There's going to be some segment that's probably going to be disappointed with how you work around that. So I understand that. Now, the thing that I would like to see them do is, if they're going to replace Minnesota with the home and home, I would like to see them try and find more regional home and homes like that. Make that basically that 4th quality game they can get really push to do like a quality home and home, like with a Creighton or an Iowa State or a Marquette. Teams, if Iowa under, Ben McCollum becomes, quality, play a really good regional opponent, and don't be afraid to take that home and home there, because I think that's going to give you quality, and it's going to give your fan base another game that at minimum they're going to want to turn out for. So that's where I think you are. I don't think you should throttle back on the quality for that 4th home and home series, but that's
and realistically, like this is the Minnesota game falls off. It was a strict 2-game series that's over. Next year you're starting a new. You can go find perhaps a better game. No offense meant towards Minnesota on that. I just the intrigue level. I think and I agree with you. Like, I think there would be more intrigue if you're able to bring in somebody a little bit more regional. A little bit more familiar, somebody with some recent history. I would like to see them, look at the old Big 8. Any teams that are not currently in their conference. So you could look at Nebraska, you could look at Colorado, you could look at K-State, Oklahoma State. I think a lot of those sort of schools would make a lot of sense to schedule home and home with. Any final thoughts you have on this schedule?
Last thing is, people will also talk about, this is going to kill them, this going to hurt them come NCAA tournament time. Matt Watkins did a bang-up job explaining this on our boards, and I'll put it this way: if your non-conference SOS is a key talking point going into Selection Sunday, you're already in trouble. You don't want to be talking about non-con SOS going into Selection Sunday, because chances are you've fumbled a lot of other quad one win opportunities. Like Missouri's schedule usually gives them 13 to 17 quad one chances a year. If you can't get 4 or 5 quad one wins out of 13 to 17 cracks, you probably don't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
So that's my whole thing there.
Regardless if they're auto-inserting North Carolina over you, right? Like like it's one of these things where, like, and I agree with you, because Missouri put themselves in a position last year, and you take away the late season skid, but the late season skid didn't really matter because they had taken care of all their previous work was done by the time they started not playing well. Maybe that was part of why they started not playing well, because they were sort of already inserted into a good spot in the NCAA tournament. I think kind of going in, like, I don't think any of us sort of thought they would end up being like a 6 seed, but they were, I thought they were probably going to end up on the 7 line, and respectfully, like, they should have been like at about that range because of the quality of the conference and the quality of the wins they had. And that's doing your work. That's, you're going to have opportunities. You're going to have an opportunity to beat Kansas. You're going to have an opportunity to beat Illinois. You're going to have an opportunity to beat, Minnesota, Notre Dame, like all these teams. Like, go win those games and don't worry about it. Like,
yeah.
Like the NCAA selection committee does not look at, like, where was your non-conference strength of schedule? They don't. What they do is they look at, who did you beat? What was your record when you were presented with the opportunities?
And the other thing that matters here is SOR. Like, we talk a lot about SOS, but the biggest correlation to getting in your seed in the tournament is strength of record, which, as you just said, that's doing your work. That's winning the games that you're supposed to win against good teams. When the NCAA tournament committee is sending you a message about your SOS, it's because you didn't do the work otherwise. So,
right.
Yeah, it stinks that maybe there are 8 or 9 quad 4 games here, but the only material impact that has is if Missouri bungles opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and it becomes salient. So, and ultimately, it may not impact their seeding very much, because this is the way it happens. The value in playing a bunch of these quad 4 games is that you run the score up and you essentially build in a possession buffer, which, it doesn't juice your net rating a ton, but it gives you some help. The only way these hurt you is if you lose them. So most teams don't lose quad 4 games. They just don't blow teams out. So you're not getting the added benefit of them. They're just a win. They don't hurt you if you go 8-1. They don't look at you and go, 8-0 in that quad. They're going to still look at how many quad 1 and 2 wins did you have ultimately. Yeah. So the quad 4s don't really matter unless Missouri loses 2 or 3 of them, which is, again, then we're not talking about the NCAA tournament. So realistically, this just comes back to after December, they have, if you were to use Torvik as the guy, they will have 16 quad 1 opportunities after December 1. Median wins to get in the tournament usually is around 5. So Missouri's got to go 5-11 in quad 1.
You got to put the other headphone in because you're I think it's on that mic. Yeah. the sound on your discussion went out as soon as that fell off. I don't know. I think that's it as far as the non-conference schedule. We are kind of running low on time here. I did want to at least sort of broach some of this, some of the recruiting stuff, but also like I want to get a quick Tim Fuller thought, mainly because I posted. I want to say it was a week and a half ago for the commute. I just had a few thoughts on Tim Fuller. And I did see in the comments, I don't remember who said it, but it was basically a couple people had said something along the lines of, they weren't super excited about Fuller because of he was sort of on board when things went downhill for Missouri. And I would say, like, I'm not trying to get anybody excited about Tim Fuller. I know, like, for a while there, people were calling me his PR agent. Like, that's not the situation. I have not even spoken to him since he's been back. I hope he does well. However, I think if you go back and you look at the talent level that was on Missouri's roster when Tim Fuller was a coach, like, the problem wasn't the talent level for Missouri when Tim Fuller was the assistant coach, right? The problem was some of the decisions by the athletic director to hire certain head coaches. Tim Fuller brought in multiple NBA players, multiple like really great college players, and like the kind of roster that he was able to put together for Frank Haith, even in that second season, is the kind of roster that, like, I think Dennis Gates would have a lot of success with. So when you talk about, like, he was one of the guys who was there when things kind of went downhill, that was way more about Kim Anderson and hiring somebody who was not qualified for the job than it was like who the assistants were around him. Rob Fulford is a guy who has since been successful, as an assistant coach. Not just him, but I still can't hear your mic, by the way. Yeah, did your thing just disappear? I may just be finishing this on my own. You can exit it and hop back in if you think that'll help too. Can you hear me? No? Okay. But yeah, so the talent level on Missouri's rosters overall was not the issue with with why they failed until Tim Fuller's support for the roster started dissipating. So you think about Kim Anderson in year 2 versus year 1. They did have a lot of young talent, but I mean, like Techie Gill Caesar was a legitimate, top 40 4-star player, and until he got hurt, I thought that guy was destined for the NBA. Like he was looking really good. Jonathan Williams had a fantastic college career. Jakeenan Gant became a little bit of a hot rod, but he was a guy who was pretty awesome. Granted, a lower level of Sun Belt, but he was putting up monster numbers down there. So I really don't think that if you're trying to talk yourself into getting excited, the reason why you should be excited over the hire is that Tim Fuller is going to help them, like, with access to talent. He has really great contacts. He knows everybody in the industry. He is going to be able to put them in position to reel in the talent. And then the rest is going to be up to Dennis and the assistant coaches on keeping that talent in-house, developing it, turning it into a winner, all that kind of stuff. But if you're looking for, like, why I think this is a good hire, like, that's it. Like, the problem with Tim Fuller's time at Missouri was not the fact that he wasn't getting players.
And you look at some of those staffers too that were around in some ways, like Brian Tabaldi has gone on. He's now been on multiple staffs. He's now with Kim Anderson. You go look at Emmanuel Dildy, who was on Kim's staff. Works for John Shire now at Duke. Like, Tim Fuller did not have problems finding employment after Kim Anderson. Nobody said, oh, man, that guy. Ugh.
Yeah.
Like, Overtime Elite and Amazon put a lot of money behind that effort, and they hired Tim Fuller to go get guys to make that work. So, like, the issue here is Kim Anderson was not a very good basketball coach at a high major level.
And he was the guy who, like, brought in the Thompson twins, like, before they were, like, the Thompson twins. And I'm not talking about the 80s rock band, everybody. No. I'm talking about Eamon and Auser. How do you say his first name?
Auser. I can't remember.
But two lottery picks, right? So it's just like, two guys that turned into lottery picks and are in the NBA now. So the guy knows talent.
And it's different now too, because the entire job is to focus solely on building relationships, accessing your Rolodex. He did work, briefly in the Nike division for hoops, so he understands how to communicate with agents, talk to agents. There's a nice mix of skills there, and I think you just have to accept that, this is a non-on-court role. This is him accessing Rolodex, helping them get connections, helping them figure out who are the people you need to talk to with a player. That's what recruiting is in so many ways. It's not, yes, you need a relationship with a player, but it's finding the two people with a player that player trusts, that player is going to look to, and that they're going to lean on it for advice, and getting that person in your camp as well. That's as much about recruiting as it is about walking in and diagramming X's and O's and about outlining your program and your player development. It's about understanding who you need to build relationships with and have the time to do that. And so if Tim Fuller can help facilitate that, that's his purpose here. And, if you look again, as you just outlined, at the recruiting successes that were here, he can do that. So I think the on-court stuff to me is really irrelevant, because it's not what his job description is going to entail here. That's completely removed from this. And even if your critique is the on-court stuff, go look at some of his peers who were on some of those staffs and where they are now. They're all in pretty good jobs. So
he was also the guy that kind of got them going with Ryan Miller, right?
Yeah.
So Ryan Miller just took what job? What job did he take?
But
another head coach now. Like he's a head coach.
Yeah. Oh, he's at Creighton now. He was at Creighton now. I think he's at Murray State. So I think that's where he wound up. But
yeah, Murray State.
Yeah. So you look at the guys that have come out of this, they've all come out pretty squeaky clean for the most part. It's ultimately comes down to they didn't have a good head coach. The staffers have all gone on to have sustained careers. So,
and even like, look, obviously we also know like Brad Luce, who was brought on.
So bad that Missouri's kept him around and put him in a lead fundraising role.
He was hired away, to basically be awesome at Memphis, and was so good at that, he can't, they hired him back at Missouri for an even larger role. Look, the problem wasn't the assistant coaches. So with that, I digress. Do you have any updates you want to toss out before we get out of here?
We're going to start seeing if we're going to get dates for recruits to set official visits. We already know 2 in 2026. Ethan Taylor has told reporters at camp settings that he'll probably take an official to Missouri. He is probably one of the fastest risers in the 2026 class. I mentioned him earlier. He is a 7'1" post out of Shawnee Mission Northwest on the JoCo side of the border in Kansas City. Yeah. He had been in the 70s of a lot of recruiting rankings. He jumped up 50 spots in the last month. He's really started to put together kind of the skill scoring package that you want to see on the block. He's already been a fantastic rebounder, already a fantastic defender, but he's starting to figure some things out skill-wise offensively. Missouri's put in a lot of legwork there, but we're starting to see some other programs like Texas, Baylor, Texas A&M, Kansas, maybe some other blue bloods now with this jump will start sniffing around. So you got to hope that, you've got some durability there. The other thing is Indiana has moved in, and why is that salient? Because they have Rod Clark on staff. Rod Clark is a former MoCan coach, and he helped Tennessee get in with a lot of MoCan guys. There's also on that staff a former member of KC Run GMC who is going after Chase Branham now for Indiana. So in 2027. So there are some machinations out there with other programs that have historically better success trying to dip into what is a really, really full pipeline right now in 2026 and 27. Otherwise, it's been a really, really interesting month to see kind of who's doing what on the camp circuit. Scotty Atkinson continues to overplay his ranking. He's playing really well at the Nike Elite 100 right now. That kid's been eating souls for the last 100 games and can't get inside the top 40 of recruiting rankings. I know we have projectability.
If only he were like 6'4" or 6'5", then
If only he were 2 or 3 inches taller, he'd be in the top 20. Doesn't matter that he's averaged 18 points per game over the last 100 games and puts up 1.2 points per possession. Doesn't matter. He's going to be like JJ Andrews. He's going to sit in the 30s for a year, and then next April, people will be like, "Oh, he's good," and they'll put him in the top 20. So he's playing really, really well. Jim McKinney, the third, is played well in some settings, but we're going to get ready to see kind of, I think, coming out of June and what the visit schedule looks like for 26 and 27 kids going into the fall. It seems like some of these processes are going slower than usual at this point, but that's what's happening there on the recruiting trail. So lots of camps, lots of talent in 2026 and 27. Hopefully Missouri can secure 4 or 5 of them, but we'll see. We'll know coming out of July kind of what the visit schedules look like.
So we'll have those updates as they come. As always, they hit the forums first. If you are listening to this not a Rock M Plus subscriber, please say hello to us and subscribe. We'll be there. Should have some exciting news coming in the future. We've got a couple irons in the fire as far as some progress being made on some things that we're doing, and some potential new hires. So that's exciting. That's it. That's all I got. You good to get out of here?
Yeah, I'm good to go. I'm out. I have an earbud back.
So we'll take a couple weeks off. I think we're gonna kind of keep doing this 3-man rotation thing. So I think it might be me and at Data Mizzou next time. But we'll figure that part out. In 2 weeks we'll be back with more dive cuts. So until then, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will see you.